Education, Planning Commission, Government of India. I would like to request all the delegates to please take their seats. I repeat myself, the session would be chaired by Madam Shakila Shamshu, Joint Advisor Education, Planning Commission, Government of India. The other participants in this session are Dr. Sandhya Chintala, Executive Director, Sector Skills Council, NASSCOM, Dr. Deepak Shah, Secretary, Kamla Education Society, Pune, Maharashtra, Dr. Madhu Chitkara, Vice Chancellor, Chitkara University, Chandigarh, Professor Dr. Sandeep P. Solanki, Director, MBA, M.H. Gadi School of Management, Captain H.A. Arfi, IAS, Director, AICC and AIESR, Amity University, Noida. Dr. Dholakia was unable to make it to the summit, so we have Ritesh Mehta on his behalf, who would be giving us a short speech on the initiatives being taken by Gujarat Knowledge Society. With this, I would like to hand over the session to Madam Shamshu to take it forward. Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. In fact, thank you to the ELTS group, which has been regularly hosting the World Education Summit and the E-India conference, and at critical junctures, both in April and in August. I am having enormous pleasure in welcoming all the eminent panelists on this session, but I would just like to make a corrigendum myself, which I had pointed out to the organizers of the summit, that I am a former joint advisor of the Planning Commission, and my present designation is Officer on Special Duty in the Department of Higher Education, MHRD. So that stands corrected. I was assured that they would make that, though the program was printed, that they would make that when they make the announcement here. So let me put that, let me set that right first. I was taken into the MHRD mainly for formulating the 12th plan. And I thought that it is, though the speakers have been introduced, I'd just love if each of the speaker just, introduces oneself in a brief manner. And then I would like to have the session going forward with my thoughts for about 2-3 minutes and a small PowerPoint presentation. Not that the PowerPoint presentation would be the lead thing that's going around. And I think thereafter the panelists are free to, have about 5 to 7 minutes for their own. So I'd start with Captain Arfi, who is there on my right side. I think we'll go right and then we go left for each one to introduce yourselves first, and thereafter I'd start the session, please.
Good afternoon to everybody. Again, there is a change in so far as my designation is concerned in the Amity University. I used to be the director and head of the institution in Amity Institute of Corporate Communication and Amity Institute of English Studies and Research. Presently, I'm advisor in both these institutions. So that is the only change. I hope this will be taken care of. So far the introduction is concerned, I started my career as a lecturer, switched over to Army. Quickly, stayed there in Army, fought a battle against Pakistan in 1965 war. Qualified for the IS etc. examinations in 1966 and came to the civil services, joined the Delhi government. Thereafter, I had been a diplomat also. Since I had my central deputation in the Ministry of External Affairs, I worked here for some time in the headquarters, and they was posted outside in an embassy. And that is how I had the experience of a diplomat also. Subsequently, after my retirement in the year 2000, I have joined Amity University after the cooling period. And I'm there with Amity University, associated with their academics for the last 9 years. And presently, I am the advisor. That is how it goes. During this period, I was associated for quite a long time, so far education at a school level is concerned. And that is how I have got my practical experience and ground realities which are there, which are really, really astonishing. And these are very important so far as the policymakers are concerned. Particularly because the representative of the Planning Commission is there now, the ministry is representative there. I hope, wish and pray that whatever is deliberated in these sessions will be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Dr. Madhu Chitkara, and from Chitkara University. I am acting as a Vice Chancellor there. I started my career as a hardcore school teacher in 75, and then shifted to higher education after doing my PhD. I am from Applied Sciences, and then we thought of making our own venture, and in 2002, we started with the Chitkara University. Now it's in Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. We have 2 universities, and with 10,000 students and 2,000 people working for it. And I again thanks the organizer to give me this opportunity to be here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd request the panelists on my.
Dr. Sandeep Solanki, Director of MBA Department, Gardi Vidyapit, Rajkot, Gujarat. Associated with many universities and a committee member designing the syllabus, 14 years of teaching experience, including the corporates too. Presented the number of research papers in number of national international conferences, and equal number of papers are published in many research journals, and PhD guide in number of university. Thank you.
I am Dr. Deepak Shah. I am a little man out in all your education is sitting over here, because basically I am an industrialist. I run my plastic industry since last 30 years, and now I am into the education since last 15 years. We run Management Institute. I am LNC, that is chairman of Engineering College in Talega. We are from the basically rural area, and our student strength is more than 2,500, and Engineering College about 1,000. And we run all this show in the rural area of near Pune. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Sandhya Shintala, Executive Director from NASSCOM, and I look after, in particular, the IT-ITS Sector Skill Council, which is supposed to be the standard setting and skill development initiative of this industry organization.
Thank you to all the panelists for the brief introductions, and I think I'll just set the stage. The topic that has been assigned for this particular session is Industry-Academy Collaboration, Channelizing Collaborative Models. And while the thrust of it seems to be, at least for the organizers, is how to address the challenge of getting job-ready graduates or workers or whatever you would like to call them. If it's skilling, maybe you would use the word workers. But though I would really not like to make a distinction between a blue-collared worker and maybe a white-collared worker, because the knowledge levels being different would be so. But to use a word, maybe job-ready workers would not really fit into my schema of thinking as such. But what we are trying to say is people who could get into organizations and who could take on the roles that they were assigned to in an absolutely seamless kind of manner, having moved out from their educational system. Now that's really quite challenging. And I thought that this particular session, we need to address on one side of the spectrum the needs in terms of the skilling requirements and the employability factor of our students. And the other end of the spectrum, we need to address how industry academy linkages could facilitate research and promote entrepreneurship and innovation. So we are looking at a very wide spectrum from one end, which is to be in terms of getting a skill set ready young group of people, and on the other set, trying to see how India could really make it onto the research map and become recognized as a research authority, or if not a research authority, at least in some domains, some sort of a unique contribution that India could make in the field of research. And I thought I had just tried to put, the presentation is also trying to do that, because the approach paper to the 12th five-year plan, we are in the second year of the 12th five-year plan, which started in 2012 to 2017, and the plan itself got approved as late as 27th of December 2012. So we lost almost the first year in getting the plan officially approved by the National Development Council. And now that the plan is already an approved document, I thought it would be necessary for us to, as organizers or as as educationists who are there in this particular field, whether it is skilling or whether it is research or whether it is entrepreneurship, we need to know what is it that the plan document had talked about. And so in that sense, I really don't blame them for saying, I still remain Joint Advisor Planning Commission, because all the time we are talking in terms of the plan document. And therefore, I thought I should give you that perspective of the plan document itself. The approach paper to the 12th plan has talked about education and employability. And I think we need to look at that, because unless we are able to, address the employability factor of our students, and particularly so when India stands at a threshold of a very large demographic advantage, which we hope will be an advantage if they have the right employable skills, then we need to empower them with what we call not just the 3 R's, but the 4 C's, in terms of critical thinking, in terms of creativity, in terms of collaboration, and focus on these, particularly the soft skills also. Now, this is what the approach paper said. And as far as the actual plan document, it went around to say that we need to create, academic clusters and networks so that institutions come together and collaborate on a common platform for sharing of their knowledge, expertise, and in order to make students almost in a position to take up jobs which the industry would need. So there is a relevance between what is being taught and what is actually required in the job market. And in order to put this, this has come as one of the key strategies in the under the subhead of excellence, because as you know, when we talked about the 11th plan and the 12th plan, the focus has been on 3 E's: expansion, equity, and excellence. And under excellence, this has been one of the key strategies that has been highlighted. And it is worthy to note that for the first time, the plan document has talked about an institutional structure which they would like to call, or potentially which has been thought of as being a council for industry, higher education, collaboration. Now, this kind of an institutional structure might make a world of a difference, because while all of us sitting in this room might be thinking that it is an ideal thing to happen, it cannot take place unless there is an actual institutional structure which can take that forward. So what is to be an ideal can be translated into a reality only if that were to happen. And it is interesting to note that this is one of the things on which the ministry is actually contemplating, because it has been put into the implementation framework of the 12th five-year plan. But my PowerPoint, I'm just trying to also give you what has been the international perspective in terms of trying to make graduates employable. And as you may be aware, in UK now most of the universities have been asked that every course that is being conducted by them, they need to indicate what is the employability factor of doing that course. So if I were to do a course in history, as a student, graduate student of history, I need to know what are the employment opportunities that can be taken up by doing a course in history. And that is so for all the disciplines. Now, I have just tried to put that together and try to address what do we actually stand to benefit by having industry-academia collaboration, both in terms of employability, in terms of research, and in terms of innovation. So I think since we have a time constraint, and I'd like people to also ask questions during the session, I just run through the PowerPoint, which I think is on the laptop there. It's not remotely controlled here. So I'll just go there, run through the presentation before I pass on the mic to the other panelists. Yeah, as I said, I'll just run through this, and this is the big picture that I thought we should all have in perspective, and why this topic becomes extremely relevant, because we are talking about India having a very young population. And as I mentioned, if you can see in the last line, the proportion of the population, the working age group of 15 to 59 would increase from 57.7 to 64.3. Now that is where the crux of the issue lies, and why we all should be assembled in this room today about a topic which we have been talking about, if Sandhya would recall, maybe for the last 8 to 9 years. We've been meeting and interacting in the Planning Commission since 2006, and from then on till now, which is almost about 7 to 8 years, we've been talking about the need for making our students employable and focusing on research. So therefore, I thought that the thrust of the question, which this topic is, in whatever manner you would like to actually call that as a theme, is about education and employability, and the question that both industry and universities and higher education institutions need to address is how to enhance student employability by making education relevant, dynamic, and suited to the industrial, commercial, business, and societal needs of a global economy. And I would like to highlight the fact that of a global economy and not just of an indigenous economy of this country. Because today I think the globe is a village, and what our students are doing today should be able to fetch them jobs across the world. Similarly, vice versa, we should be able to get in students from other institutions to work in our industries over here, because today India is emerging as a global hub, not only for education, but also for employment. And that's, I think, all of us sitting in this room are realizing that factor. Now, coming to this was the point that I said, that graduates now require the skills beyond the 3 R's. The skills that we are talking about are of critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, which are the 4 C's that have actually got documented in the plan document, in the approach paper to the 12th plan document. We come out normally with an approach paper first, which has a perspective of what the plan document is likely to look at, and this has been something in terms which has been a matter of concern about how do we enhance the employability of our young students. And the last line, if you can see, the special emphasis on verbal and written communication skills, especially in English, would improve the employability of the large and growing mass of disempowered youth. Now, which means we are actually acknowledging that the existing youth student population is disempowered. And how are we going to empower them? That is where the question, or that is where the thrust of today's discussion comes in. Now, under the 12th five-year plan, I will just mention what it says: create and facilitate alliances, networks, clusters, and a consortium of academic institutions amongst themselves and with research institutions and industry to accelerate the process of knowledge development by better resource utilization and by complementing mutual expertise. This is how it is articulated under excellence as one of the key strategies. And I have only picked up one point that has come in the way forward for this. That is, a systematic approach would be necessary to strengthen the scale and scope of these partnerships, and that is where the nodal agency that I mentioned about is being talked about in the plan document. And as I said, this is one thing that the ministry is quite seriously thinking in terms of moving forward with. This is something that I just thought to put a perspective for all of us sitting over here. What do we define it as? It's an interactive and collaborative arrangement between academic institutions and business corporations for the achievement of certain mutually inclusive goals and objectives. Why the need? I think all of us are aware, and I think here today we are talking in terms of the 4th one, the growing need of industry to make their fresh recruits productive with the right knowledge, skills, and attitude, and thereby reduce the training costs. So most important for the session today is to talk about this particular aspect, while I said that when we talk about a topic like this, we should also address all the other needs of industry-academy interface. Interface is through all these possibilities of guest lectures, of joint seminars, of consultancy, of academia generating ideas and acting as incubators, training and internship of students, industry representation in governing councils. It could also be through executive education or through management development MDP programs, as we call them, industry inputs in curriculum designing, industry providing financial and infrastructure support, funding academic and applied research, student mentoring, and setting up of knowledge clusters. Now, this was something I thought which was actually put up by the UK Council for Graduate Engineers. But while I've used the word graduate engineers, this flowchart is as much applicable for anyone in general education also. What might be missing in that might be the technical competence part of it, which is something specifically for technical education, but the commercial awareness and the soft skills development apply to all general students who are in our higher education system today. This is what the generic skills that was talked about by the UK Council for Industry Higher Education. Communication skills, team working skills, integrity, intellectual ability, and self-confidence. And on the right side, I have plotted what they thought were not so important as the other, but which is equally important for making our students having employability or doing good at the jobs that they were selected. I must mention on this point, as part of the plan process, the Department of Higher Education had a working group on technical education, which had a subgroup on skills and employability. And similarly, the Planning Commission had constituted the N. Narayana Murthy, our Infosys chairperson's committee for public-private partnership or corporate sector participation. Now these ideas, including the Council for Industry Higher Education, have emanated from basically these working groups. And these are only suggestive by nature. I have Vice Chancellor from Chitkara University, someone from Kamala Education Society, and many others in the eminent group of participants here, where your institutions might already be adopting some of these approaches. And therefore, I am not trying to say that this is an exhaustive list, neither am I trying to say that, thank you, neither am I trying to say that, you know, these are things which are not taking place. I am only suggesting or putting across a list of possible approaches that could be thought of in terms of bringing an industry interface with our educational institutions. Now this also is familiar, but I'm just putting it all, the industry-academic collaboration, how does it benefit the institute, real-time R&D in the institute, hands-on R&D experience for both students and faculty, training of students and faculty, better teaching and better pedagogy, possible intellectual property rights and possible patents. What does it do to the industry? Extension Center for R&D efforts, greater access to trained researchers and teachers. And when I say researchers, it means the students as such, not just the researchers or external researchers. It's basically students and teachers, but researchers and students. Greater access to student workforce whose potential to excel can bring in ideas, lower cost of R&D, and greater IPR rights. The research through linkages, special empowerment fund. This is also one of Narayana Murthy's recommendation. Provide incentives to industry to support research in academic institutions and the possibility of a virtual research academy. As I said, the path ahead, this is what I thought all of us should take on board. Educational institutions have to move forward beyond the phenomenon of working with employers towards the concept of working with partners. The collaboration between the two is dynamic and complex. A synergetic relationship has to be carved out between the institutes and the industry so that both can benefit and also contribute to enhancing the employability skills, quality of teaching, and research. That's all that I had to just go through. I thought that I'm just giving a perspective. I'm sure each one of us in the panel would like to share their experiences and also what their own institutions would like to carry forward. And in particular, I would like to hear from Sandhya also, what is it that the sector skills is thinking in terms of this. Thank you very much. And I think we'll take all the questions after all the panelists have spoken.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here. Taking off from Mrs. Shamshu has said, she's placed the context, she's given you a need analysis, and has given you a concept of various approaches. From my side, from industry, I will actually put it into an action plan and say what is feasible, short, medium, and long term. As a short brief
To start off, I come representing the National Association of Software and Service
Sandhya,
Companies.
if I may just interrupt, let us keep that time limit as about 5 to 7 minutes. Not
Done, ma'am. So, as the National Association of Software and Service Companies, we come with about $110 billion today, to grow to about $225 billion in the next 7 years, come with a human resource of about 3 million today, and with an aspirational need to rise to about 7 million in the next 7 years. But this contribution of direct employment of 10 million in 2020 would lead to another 20 million indirect. But this is just a part of the total 350 million, which is going to be shared among 21 other skill sectors. So NASSCOM, as representing this industry association, has taken on a new avatar, which is called the Sector Skill Council, formalized under the Ministry of Finance, under the aegis of the National Skills Development Corporation, directly under the focus of the Prime Minister's office, which is under the National Skills Mission. With this brief, the idea is, what are we going to do with the problems that we have? So I will take a case in point as this IT/ITS industry, but I will be speaking on behalf of all the sector skill councils. The sectorial approach is that we need to scale quality capacity. And when I talk of quality capacity, it's just not students, it is the faculty, it is the infrastructure, it's the student and the ecosystem at large. As ma'am has earlier very clearly articulated, both the ends of the spectrum, that is employability at the entry level and moving into high-end R&D and innovation, are both equally required. As a mature industry body, we have moved and we continue to evolve, and from services, we move on to product development and innovation, and we're looking very heavily into also R&D. We include new areas like construction, heavy engineering. We talk about e-governance, we talk about information security, we talk about remote infrastructure management, etc. But how much does the academic community know about us? Industry has gone on its own journey. We have not made the effort to bridge the misconception of supply requirement and demand requirement. So the supply side has actually perceived the industry's requirement and moved on its own journey. It's time for us to bridge and therefore channel the collaboration. So what is the first question? What is it that we have to bridge? As of now, industry has had a huge heyday, wherein which from this IT/ITS industry, we have been able to identify and say, oh, these colleges, 4,500 engineering colleges, another 30,000 non-engineering, we're not able to hire all of them. Do we need to hire all of them? The answer is no. But those who we hire, we have found we have to do an extensive rework. Do you think internationally an extensive rework is required? Is it sustainable? Does it put India as a commercial viable proposition for business? No. So we have to rethink. So this concept of a sectorial approach to skilling is a need of the hour. So what are we going to do here? Earlier on, we talked about foundation program, which covers whatever these, which Mrs. Shamshu has actually very clearly extrapolated. Now we are talking of job-ready individuals. So the first thing that we have done is broken ourselves up and clearly articulated what are the subsectors within the industry and put a plan of action and how we will make ourselves understood so that the supply-demand requirement and gaps can be bridged. One is quantitative, the other is qualitative. So as an industry-setting body, IT services, business process management, engineering and R&D, and software and product development are going to be the new areas or avenues that we're going to talk to industry as well as to academia. So industry says 1,400 companies out of an ecosystem of 5,000 companies, 97% of the business acumen is provided from these 1,400 companies. Do they know what each other needs? Do they have a common problem? Are they addressing the commonality to the academic? No. So what do? The first thing we did is, can we identify unique job roles at entry level, middle management, and at the leadership? So that exercise has been completed. Very strangely, we find 67 unique job roles across these 4 subsectors at the entry level, 313 job roles at the middle management, and at the leadership about 130. It's like almost a pear shape like this. But the human resource is triangular. 80% of the human resource that we hire is at the entry level. So these 67 job roles, we will take up and identify a functional analysis. That means we will say, what is the scope of the individual in this role? What are the skills, knowledge and understanding, both technical as well as domain specific? What is the creative and the generic skills required, like written, communication, soft skills? Each one of them will be articulated, the outcomes will be identified, and we put it up as a document which is called a qualification pack or occupational standards that make a set of requirements for a job role. These will be published. From our side, in the next 20 days or so, it will be up as a product for all of you to see. Now, what happens next? We look for licensed training providers, colleges, universities, companies themselves to actually start preparing courseware to meet these requirements. So what the Sector Skill Council does is have course conformity. Are these courses that you say are the need of industry conforming to these standards? From there, we move into actually identifying assessors and certifications. These certifications could be collaborative, international as well as domestic, but it is the voice of industry. So the industry sets the standard and goes back to certify the competency of the individual. We look to a large number of players, formal, non-formal, actually contribute to the skilling of the human resource. Now, do we have an audit process to actually ensure that the numbers that we require are going to be met? So that's going to be another area. We've found that the sectoral approach is actually in compliance with ISO standards. So we are actually putting up a process where we say course conformity, course development, assessment, certification, audit, all are in compliance with ISO standards. What's this requirement? We think India has the capacity to be the leader in these global standards. So what means now skills certification becomes the new mantra for mobility internationally. Your kid, our child, is basically here, certified in India, but can he work in Korea? Can he work in Spain? Can he work in the EU area, in the UK? Yes. So that is what we are looking at. So we think having a young population is a great idea. Skilling them to global standards is wonderful. Get them parity so that there is a group of people around the world and countries that say they're going to have an aging population and therefore a requirement for younger skilled individuals. Can India be the supply side of the chain? Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, with that short intro, I'll leave myself open to questions. I would just like to end with saying, this life of the student that we're going to see is constantly going to evolve. We found that over a period of 30 years, the children really have to do about 8 to 10 jobs that they change. That means it's constantly a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And that's what we have to bridge. It's just not the student, it's the faculty and the ecosystem that supports this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sandhya. I think I'd request Captain Arfi to make his presentation, or you would like to, because we'll take the questions, I think, at the end of all the panelists speaking. So, Captain Arfi, would you like to speak from here, or would you have a PowerPoint over there? Yeah, sure. Whatever you feel convenient.
Thank you, Madam. The tragedy of our discussions in such seminars and summits is this, that there is a paucity of time. As a result of that, nobody is doing justice with whatever he has to say. As a result of that, we have not been able to contribute a single thing in the summit at all. And this is what happened the other day when I was speaking in the India International Center. And there also the topic was the same, bridging the gap between academia and the industry. And the same is the problem here. I'm sure I will not be able to do justice here also. Instead of 7 minutes, 15 minutes. So we are the victims of their follies. Okay. We, in the process, are losing more time. I really feel privileged to be here to express my experiences and share with you whatever has happened so long during my 50 years of career, both in the civil services, when I was the head of the education department dealing with care and administration and academics of about more than 1,000 schools in Delhi, and thereafter in higher education also so long. I'm there in Amity University for the last 8-9 years, and taking care of 4 programs there, English BA Honors, MA, MPhil, and PhD. Now the problem is that
I think the organizers are having a video, so they would like you to actually go onto the podium and speak. Yeah, please. No, but they want them to videograph.
to start with, I would only submit that by now we have been able to understand that it's not the government alone which can do everything. We have many examples outside the country, in different countries of the world, where we find that a lot of many things such as education, health, transport, postal authorities, and things like that are in the private domain. They are not in the government domain. Maybe perhaps because of the fact that there is a certain amount of competition involved there, and they always try to improve the delivery of services which is there for the citizens. And therefore, so far this sector of education is concerned, it is good that private sector also is involved, both at the school level, at the primary level, at the middle level, at the secondary and higher secondary level, as well as higher education. These are the different layers of education in the country. And when we say that education is the backbone of democracy, perhaps we forget that it is not a question of giving degrees, undergraduate and postgraduates. It is only inculcating the spirit of democratic values and secular values in the citizens of the country, which becomes important so far the contribution of education is concerned. Now, taking it from that point of view, the domains are different. A school education, then vocational training, these are the three divisions which have been made here in this summit. A school education, or primary education, the vocational education, and the higher education. I don't think this is a correct differentiation. What it should be there is a school education, and vocational education should be dovetailed with primary education. I can say with confidence and with my own experience that we were trying to have maximum number of enrollments at the primary level, because by now free and compulsory education up to 14 years of age, free and compulsory education up to 14 years of age, that is the right of education. That is not the problem. Problem is not that the people want that there should be education for them. The problem is that when a child of 9 years or 10 years goes to the school, he loses getting 50 rupees at the end of the day and bringing it to the family. With the result, he prefers to work in a lathe machine in the locality than to go to the school. The other attraction was that midday meal. So what used to happen was that when I started this as a crash program in the walled city, the students 100% enrollment was done. What 65% left out, they dropped out. What they used to do, they used to come, they used to have the midday meal and run away. Then what we did is started doing is that we involved some of the voluntary agencies in that area, non-government organizations, and they started having these programs for them. Now they work for the whole day there, and for some time only they come for this education, and they earn 50 rupees. At the end of the day, they attend the training programs also, and at the same time they go for school education also. So education for all can be a slogan. For the primary education, all right. But so far higher education is concerned, I am personally not in favor of education for all at all. It has to be a selective process, and it is only some of the people who can be propped up for purpose of higher education. Now what has happened today is, you know the scenario. The scenario which was used to be there for BA, Bachelor of Arts students. Thousands of them are there in the society. None of them get employment. And that is what is happening with MBA now. MBA equal to BA now. MBA is equal to BA now. Believe me, there are hundreds and thousands of MBAs who have got degrees from mushrooming growth of institutions, which in Delhi particularly is in every third lane. There is a management institution. Now there has to be government. There has to be some regulatory body. They have got to make sure that this mushrooming growth of the management and science and technology institutions has stopped forthwith. And that is why it has to be a holistic approach and an integrated approach, where it is not the responsibility of government, it is not the responsibility of NGOs, it is not the responsibility of social activists. It is also the role of the industries, and industries in this sector, which is known as the what is that? The extra responsibility which has cast on the shoulders of the industries, that is the corporate social responsibility. Now, taking all these stakeholders together, there has to be an action plan. If there is an action plan which is prepared by an industry, say of a software company, which Madam had just spoken about, or if it is an action plan, even if it is prepared at the level of the Government of India, if it doesn't take into consideration the pulse of the people, the happenings in the society, the institutional follies which are being done, then that will be, it will not be a total project. If it has to be total project, it has to be when all the stakeholders are taken together and there is an action plan, maybe either of the Government of India, maybe the NGO, maybe any software company, or many IT companies. Now, when I was saying that the MBAs are equivalent to BAs, one of the reasons is that, what are the challenges? Challenges are that there's no rationale about the number of students who are coming out of these universities. The mushrooming growth of these industries must be stopped forthwith. And only some of those who are capable enough, who are fit enough to be propped up for management courses or for science and technology courses should be allowed to go for that. And then, what is this? Why do we think only in terms of employability after a particular undergraduate degree or postgraduate degree? That is not the only objective. The objective should be research-oriented education. And that is what Madam also has mentioned when she gave her initial presentation here. I am also of the firm opinion that it is not only you carry it forward with the employability only, and you should only have that much number of people who pass out as management students or science and technology students as can be employed. There are other sectors also. You have to show your value and worth, and you have shine in the entire world by way of your research capabilities. And therefore, the science and technology, the research capabilities of students should be increased, and that should be one of the objectives also. Of course, there are most of the people who will be interested in the jobs. But what we are doing today is, by way of creating these people, they have got the knowledge, they have got the know-how, and they have got all sorts of education. And the IT has given them the benefits of knowing everything. But there is nothing is the unmixed blessing. They have got to know some other things also, and they have got to know about easy money also. With the result, on the one hand, if these people who do not get suitably rewarded, either by way of employment or by way of channelizing their talent and skill towards research activities, what is happening that they are going for easy money, and therefore there is growth of criminal activities into society. And you can see what is happening today. We are ashamed of.
Please make it in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Wind up in, please, 2 minutes, please.
So I will just give the points. Our Honorable Minister, Kapil Sibal, also said that teacher is not the depository of knowledge. There are other agencies also, there are other resources also, there are other tools also. Even the industries, they have got to know as to what is their requirement and what is required to be done, what is required to be taught. And therefore, those people who have got industrial experience should also be inducted into the academics. And that is how there can be a better coordination, better cooperation between academia and industries. I would strongly suggest that both NCERT, of course, will be responsible so far education, school education is concerned. But so far UGC is concerned, ACT is concerned, Government of India is concerned, or even the Planning Commission is concerned, the advisors to the Planning Commission is concerned, they must concentrate on this point, that this aspect also has got to be taken into consideration. Unless and until all of us, in a holistic approach and integrated manner, work on these, all the stakeholders join together, perhaps we will not be able to do justice to this cause of education in the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Arfi. In fact, you spoke in terms of concerns that most of us in the government and industry have. I request Vice Chancellor of Chitkara University to make a presentation, please.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody. I think presentation is not working. One thing which Dr. Sandhya has told us that there is a problem with the industry and the academia, and there is a gap between industry and academia, and everybody knows about it. And why it is happening is that we are not working together, and we are working in different compartments. What industry is doing and what academia is doing, nobody knows. So what we, as a university employee, I am facing the problem is that after 4 years, for engineering if I say, after 4 years the companies are coming to us and they are saying that our mindset is very different. We wanted something else which was to be given to the students. So as a very young university, what we started doing was, I'm not telling about that why the need is there for academia industry interaction. Reason being, everything was told by her. Whatever we are doing in this regard, because we have time is very less, we are into infancy, and we have started talking to the industries that when our students are going there, for 6 months, for example, I will take the example of Infosys. What they were doing was that after the placement was done, 6 months they were giving them the projects, and you can say the probation period was there. They were working only on the small projects. We talked to them. There was, and everybody knows that there is a Campus Connect program with Infosys. Now we are part of it. We are partner to the Infosys group, and we are working on from day one. When our students are coming to the campus, from day one, we have made, since we are a university, we can play with our curriculum. So we have one module, which was the need of the hour for the industry. They said that we need this thing to be groomed to the students. So we have made it this a part of our curriculum. So when they are going after the placements, they are they are ready for that particular industry. Now, second example is that there are some industry-relevant curriculum which is designed in consultation with the companies like Cisco, NVIDIA, NXP Semiconductors, Texas Instruments, and Cadence. We have a Cadence lab in our campus where the students working on the softwares or on the projects which are given by these companies and these industries. So they are industry ready when they are going for the placements. Now, everybody knows here that there is Mission 10X of Wipro, and there is a division of Texas Instruments. And under this Mission 10X Wipro, they are grooming our teachers. Our faculty members are part of it, and they are calling them to give them the training that how to train the students. So they are giving the training to the traders, and in that way we are benefited, and that gap is, you can say we are lessening the gap between the industry and the academia. Then I think everybody knows that there is an organization, IUC-EE. This is Indo-US Collaboration in Engineering Education. This was the brainchild of Infosys chairman, and it was started in 2008. So we are partner to it. During these collaborations, the people are coming from US to our campus, and our teachers and our students are going there. So that interaction is taking place. During that interactions, they are groomed, and they are talking to the industries that what type of industry-ready students you need. And those trainings are given to the teachers. So that is a great platform where we are working. Today only I will tell you one very good example. On our campus, there was 10B's university people, and they said that they are working with the government only on the renewable energy. And they wanted us to be partner to them, that we have signed today the MOU with them. What they are doing is they are training the students in the renewable energies, and their people are coming to our campus, and that interaction will be there. So after that, they will be placing the students. So this is the need of the hour, that we should not work in a different platforms, but there should be the same platform to work with. Another example, which is a very great example of Texas Instrument, they have their division with developing the products for teaching aids in schools. What they did with Chitkara was that they called our students, they interviewed them, and they place those students when the 6 months training is there. During that 6 months training, they were placed with Texas Instrument. They were making the modules, teaching aid modules for the schools. And those teaching aids were given to the schools. In that period, they were paid by Texas Instrument. And after that, some of them were placed in Texas Instrument. So that was where we were able to go away with that gap. Then there is 4 months and 6 months projects with the Texas Instruments.
1 minute. Complete it in 1 minute's time.
Okay, fine. And the last is that we are working with the NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA has a very great research lab. I will give you one very small example of Chandigarh administration. Our students gave one project to them that there was a eve teasing, and then Android, they make a small software for them where the eve teasing was to take care. The girl is in a problem. So our students made that program, gave to the Chandigarh administration, and they were paid 25,000 from the government for doing that project on a regular basis. So these are the things which we can do as a person in the academia, and industry can be a great help to us, where we can groom our students like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing the experiences of Chitkara University. May I now request Dr. Deepak Shah to make his presentation, please.
Good evening, everyone. I think the most of the topics and the subject has been already spoken by all my previous speakers. We are situated in PCMC, that is a prime location of industrial hub, and we are having a management institute. And what we are doing, we are just developing a human resource which understands the application of the theoretical knowledge, combined with the practical exposure and expertise to fulfill. We need human resources which are directly employable into the industry. But how it is possible? There are many plans by the government, and there are many plans by the NGOs that the universities are running. But basically what I feel is that we have an MBA course of 2 years and an engineering course for the 4 years. In the second year of the MBA, if we talk to the industry people and we get the curriculum from them, and which has to be added into the syllabus of the MBA course, then the employability will be more. And same thing with the engineering. Mr. Niranjan Hiranandan, everybody knows, is a tycoon industrialist, approached our engineering college. When he spoke to us, he said, even if you need an ayah at home, she needs a training. She doesn't know how to take the blood pressure, she doesn't know how to give the insulin injection, and she doesn't know how to clean the bed. So their skill development is required. So skill development is required not only at the MBA level or the engineering level, it is required everywhere. Even a retail market which is coming up in a huge sense, that Shopper Stop, the people approached to us. They said they want 900 employees every year. Attrition rate is more. But when we take these guys, graduate guys, for the Shopper Stop, we have to give them a training, extensive training for 1 year, and then they are employable. And in that 1 year, they pay hardly very few amount. Then what about those students or the people who want to go for a higher scale salary? So what Shopper Stop has suggested us, why don't you give a training for the 6 months in the last year of your graduation, or the BBA or the BSc or the BCom students who want to join for the retail chain, or even for the higher level management level. They also told us, for the MBA level also, if you start a training in the last 6 months, it will be definitely good for us. Anand Group, which are having the 7 industries in our area, Chakan, they are having engineering firm. They came to our engineering college. They are the same thing. In the last 1 year, we will give the projects. We will give our syllabus, what is our requirement. And the students who are ready to join our group with a minimum salary of say 20,000 and 25,000, you can give them a training. We will definitely select out of your whole lot, And if you give them the training, they will be ready to eat the material. For us, cooked food we will get in our hand. And that's why it is a requirement when we are planning the syllabus of the MBA or engineering or any education sector. That time if we do this, then it will be definitely helpful for the industry also. They get a ready-made material, and for the students, they get employment immediately. With this focus of the higher education, its attribution, we initiated few concepts. For the first time in Maharashtra, we are located in Chinchwad, the industrial town of Pune, and Pimpri also, famous for the auto and the IT hub. While exploring the job opportunity for MBA students, our faculty members visited many companies. The outcome of this survey was the change perceptive of the faculties who otherwise are busy delivering classroom lectures and following the standard pattern. Here the question of the faculty training comes. Because the faculties are trained to give the lectures in the classroom as per the syllabus or as per the textbook. But when we will introduce these type of courses or with this type of training, the faculty has to be trained first. Otherwise, it will not be effective or useful for the students. They have understood the huge gap between the classroom teaching and the corporate work environment pushed us to start many events. Our annual event is Corporate Week, which is spread over a week in which eminent speakers from industry and corporate world, entrepreneurs, share their domain-specific as well as professional skills related to the knowledge and experiences. Make the students aware about the global trends in various sectors, career opportunities, and the niche skill sets. Certification required. The event and the other efforts to develop relationship with the corporate to conduct on campus drives brought forward the fact that there is an ample job and the career opportunities with the companies were finding a right candidate is a big challenge for them as well. So we have started our another concept, that is a job fair. That is a mega job fair as a social responsibility. We decided to organize a job fair which will bring together the companies from the various sectors and the potential candidates from different specialization, ITs, graduates and postgraduate diploma holders, engineers on one platform. A free platform where candidates can explore as many as opportunities as they want, and the companies can also interview more number of candidates at a time. The differentiating factor of this event is that the total event is organized by our group with the help of 4 our institutions and 250 volunteers. The total expenses are borne by us. It is under the CSR, what you want to say. With a short span of 3 years, we have successfully built up the relationship with the more than 600 small and medium big companies along with the BNCs. We approached more than 1,300 colleges and education institutes across the Maharashtra, and about 7,000 to 8,000 students or job seekers visited on daily basis to our campus for the 3 days events. More than 100 renowned companies participation for 9,000 plus openings in various domains, and we are happy to say that more than 2,000 people or the job seeker got the jobs in this event. Here is a small video presentation for the same. This is a corporate week, what we generally do every year. Many speakers come over there and we perform the different lectures.
How long is the video, please? How long is the video?
Only 1-2 minutes, not max. I want to show maximum. This is a job fair.
I do it like this, Dr. Deepak. I think we'll have his talk and then you can please go ahead and have the video so that then we can conclude it with your video.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be better, please.
Thank you.
If you have anything more to say on your topic, you can just have a
definitely.
concluding
What
line.
I said.
Just have a concluding line, then let
okay.
we
Concluding
have
line is
Dr.
that
Sandeep
I want
speak
to
and
say,
then have the video. Yeah.
I want to say a Hindi quote for that and I conclude my speech. सोच को बदलो तो सितारे बदलते हैं, नजर को बदलो तो नजारे बदलते हैं. कश्तियां बदलने की जरूरत नहीं है, सिर्फ हम दिशाओं को बदलो तो किनारे बदलते हैं, किनारे बदल. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sandeep, we'll have your presentation, please.
Respected Chair and my dear friends, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak in this August gathering. Thank you very much also for making me the last speaker of the last session of the last day. But I'm going to share with some of the experience of mine and the ground reality. I'm a teacher, director, handling a B school. What kind of the situation is there at the ground level, and what we are doing to bridge the gap between the industry and academia. Basically, like if you can talk about the few things, what we are doing for bridging the gap between the industry and academia. We have kept a concept that is known as the corporate mentor at our institute. Corporate mentor, what does it mean? That we have kept 15 students in a corporate. One corporate in HR, marketing and finance is given to the 15 students. If the intake is the 60 students, then the 4 corporates will be there. They are going to mentor, groom the students for the specialization of HR, marketing and finance, international business. They take the responsibility starting from the first day of the academic up to the placement. They groom the students, they taught the students in different kind of the business etiquettes, what kind of how the business is going on. So that is the first concept we have implemented over the institute. Second concept, if you can talk, then Mr. Saha has rightly said that there is a gap between the need and supply, and we are also providing the vocational education to the students. Number of time when we go for the placement, we talk with the corporate, then the corporate frankly say that we don't need the Amartya Kumar Sen, economist, we don't need the Philip Kotler in the marketing, we need a simple students who understand the basics, we need the students who can make the presentations fine, perfect, who does have the good communication, these are the basic requirement. We talk with the students, these are the requirements of the corporates, and if you are groomed in a such a way, the placement will be easy. Then obviously they see that, okay, sir, we are overburdened with our syllabus, and they are also true. I was reading the Tandon committee report, and the Tandon committee says that our syllabus are very theoretical and less practical. We emphasize much more on our theories instead of the practicals. So they are always worrying, instead of focusing on the practical things and learning a practical aspects, they are always worrying about the result. They are always worrying about the subjects, backlogs, etiquettes, and this all the things. And preparing for the theoretical subject, they lack the practical knowledge. But even though we try in a such a way to groom, we do have the Excellence Center for the students' development to bridge the gap between the academia and corporates, for which what we are doing, we are inviting the corporates starting from the first day for doing the different kind of the activity, like say for example the GD is being done by the corporates, PI, personal interview, and the training, different kind of the interaction sessions with the corporates. Frequently the corporates come and discuss with the students, and the students frequently visit the industry in a such a way they come to know that. Basically in our Saurashtra region, more than 5,000 small-scale industries are there, so we are tapping and we are trying to tap the small-scale industries for the development of the students. Moreover, as we have also the syllabus committee where the corporates are there, we try to include this kind of the contents which are really helpful to the students for the development of the students. So like a few concepts are there which we are trying, through which we are trying to reduce the gap between the demand and supply, to provide the excellence bridge to the students so that they can get the job in a such a way. Otherwise, like in our small remote town, some another kind of the problem we are facing, and that is a cut copy paste. Summer projects are the fantastic opportunity for the students to go ahead with the corporate's platform. But generally 80% of the students here and there, they do only one thing, and that is the cut copy paste. They don't take it seriously. So we have done one fantastic job in the summer project. We invite the corporate people to evaluate the summer projects of the students, and we have, with the permission of the universities, we have taken the permission from the university, and the marking system of this kind of the summer project is being ranked by the industry and corporates only. So these are the few tactics which we implement in order to bridge the gap between the industry and academia. Thanks a lot for giving me once again the opportunity to speak over here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Dr. Sandeep. I was told that we have a last speaker. You're not the last. And it is Mr. Ritesh Mehta, who represents Gujarat Knowledge Society. I think they have a stall over here which has been doing a wonderful job for the last 2 days. So we have the last speaker. After he does that, you can have your video before we open the floor for a few questions. Okay, okay. Then I think it could just run around while the questions are being asked itself. Yeah.
Respected speakers, delegates, and all dear ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all of you. I am here to represent Gujarat Knowledge Society, GKS. Many of you might be aware what Gujarat Knowledge Society is, but for those who want to know more about GKS, it would be my pleasure to brief about GKS. Gujarat Knowledge Society is a revolutionary measure of Gujarat government undertaken in 2008 to bridge the gap between requirement of educational system and industries. Gujarat Knowledge Society aims to empower the youth with the skill that provide them high expertise and open up new employment avenues for them. GKS has already established training centers with the help of various educational industries. This includes both government as well as private institutions where the quality education is being imparted to the candidates. Enrollment of candidate, training by GKS training partners, assessment through GKS assessment partner, and at the end, certification by GKS are the main activities undertaken by GKS. As the training partner plays an important role in the process, GKS has already registered with some of the best educational institutions in the state and some of the finest institutions in the country, like NIIT, ILFS, CORE, and HCL, etc. If we talk about advantage to the student or candidate, then we can say that they can get improved employment opportunity by enhancing their skill and updating their knowledge according to the requirement of industry. Industries can also get skilled people locally and can cut the cost of training of employees. Companies can get associated themselves with customized training module, which allows organization to save time-seeking experienced trainers and module of trainings. GKS has recently conducted training program for Tata Motors Sanand through its training partner under corporate training modules. Moreover, GKS is also conducting assessment for candidate trained under HDIITS project and has already conducted assessment for more than 12,000 candidates. GKS has also conducted training program under Sainik Welfare Scheme last year and current year as well, and we are happy to say that all the candidates trained under this scheme has been offered employment. GKS has successfully conducted training program for basic computer course for 1,02,837 candidates against the allocated target of 1 lakh candidate under E-Empower project in just 6 months. Moreover, GKS has also conducted training program for girls for Standard 9 and 10 under Empowering Girls 2011 project and successfully completed the training of 5,776 girl candidates. Also, 8,930 girls has been trained under Empowering Girls 2012-13 project till date. Last but not the least, total 3,42,816 candidates have been trained by Gujarat Knowledge Society through its training partner since its inception. These achievements would not be possible without continuous support and different thinking for implementation of projects by our CEO and Honorable Commissioner of Schools, State of Gujarat, Sri C.V. Somsa. Therefore, on behalf of Joint CEO Dr. M.B. Dholakia and entire team, GKS team, I would like to thank our Joint CEO, Sri C.V. Somsa. With this vote of thanks, I am ending up my turn. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have the floor open for any questions. I told that they can give us time of about 7 minutes. Yes, please. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Rashid. I represent RK University, Rajkot, Gujarat. This question primarily could be answered by the academicians. The gap is there between industry and academia. A solution seems to be tweaking and changing and transforming the syllabus. My question is, when a university or a college gives a certification either of a postgraduate diploma or an MBA, there is a certain set of expectation that certain type of courses and certain types of evaluations would have happened. When we start tweaking the syllabi, that underlying promise is broken. A company, because of, see, job availability is a function of demand and supply and how the economy is functioning. If you start tweaking the curriculum, perhaps that promise of underlying exercise of evaluations and subjects taught will not be met. How do you address that? There is a framework called, one of the frameworks called Bloom's taxonomy, which could be used for deciding whether a course is UG level or a PG level. So how do we answer this? I mean, how do we bridge this?
I'll take on the questions first and then we'll have...
Which is like IITs, very difficult to get in. You get very good students. They take care of the ecosystem of learning and you have good people coming out. Or it is very easy to get in, very difficult to get out. Now we have lost somewhere. It is very easy to get in, very easy to get out. So when it is very easy to get out, why should I study? There is no incentive for a student to study, a teacher to teach, an institution to function. So if we can put the same system of entrance at exit, 90% of the solution industry will take care. The academic institutions will take care. Today it's all about 3-year papers. The gentleman was talking about that it is an MBA is a BA. I said MBA knowledge today is not even an 8th class knowledge. It is difficult to pass a 12th exam than doing an MBA today. And I can challenge that in terms of skill set. So why the whole process about interaction of that secondary? Why the IITs function? Why the IMMs function? It is difficult to get in.
Quality, okay.
It is difficult. Quality will take care of it automatically. Or you make it difficult to get out. So why can't we have frameworks where the skilling when he talks, when you are getting out, these are the skill sets which will be centrally managed, like it is managed in other cases. So that's
okay. Any more questions, please? We'll take the last one, I think, so that we'll have time. You had a question? Yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm Yash Raj. Representing SQ Technologies, we are working on some softwares that will help institutions as well as academia. Now, I think one thing which is really missing out in the bridging of the gap is the lack of the feedback loop from the industry side. I think Dr. Sandhya, probably, maybe NASSCOM may be doing something on this. I think a feedback mechanism will make things a lot better. Dear sir also made a very valid point that, we cannot be bending over backwards just to fulfill one requirement, which is that of placements. So I think, a feedback loop and a feedback mechanism with, equity stakeholding, from academia as well as from the industry is what is required, probably the need of the hour.
I think we have that as the last. I'll now request on the first question, I think Vice Chancellor from Chitkara University would like to answer.
You rightly said that when we are playing with the curriculum because of the placements, so we are not taking care of the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, if you see the Bloom's taxonomy, yes, maybe. The Bloom taxonomy says that it has to be all the components, whether it is cognitive, cognitive, affective or psychometric. Now, what we are playing with is the psychomotor, the last component, which is not part of, because the practical approach is not part of. 90% of the curriculum we frame is not taking care of the last component of the Bloom's taxonomy. So here we talk to the industry. We say that what are their requirements. So we put in that fourth component, which was the part of psychometric, and that is in engineering especially, not in the MBA I'm saying. And yes. No. Then the whole curriculum is not only because the company is saying the basic. No, that is not happening. Maybe in some of the, maybe you must have experienced that. But in our case, in our case, what we are doing is, not in my case, but especially in universities.
I think we listen to her, and if you have a counter comment to that, let's have that after the other panelists.
What we are doing is that the last component is taken care during the training period. So in engineering, we have 6 months training. In MBA also, we have a training period. So during that training period, we are taking into account the requirement of the industry. Now, for example, I'll give you one example that we are running MBA in healthcare management with Fortis. Now,
So
Fortis
Madhu,
said,
you'll have to wind it up because she's already asked me to wind up that.
Okay, fine.
Just give that.
So that
I think
was the
Sandhya
thing.
wanted to say a point on that. Yeah.
Very interesting, you've taken Bloom's taxonomy and the curriculum. They are not synonymous with each other in the Indian context. Knowledge, understanding, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and effective communication. What is being addressed? The curriculum is not our concern, it's the outcome. The existing outcomes are totally 85%, if you look in the existing scenario, only being concerned in the lower order thinking skills. What industry is trying to invent is bring the higher order thinking skills, like analysis, problem solving, teamwork, etc. So when we are suggesting changes, we went through everything. So we actually gone through your curricula. We are now drafting out and saying, if I talk of embedded, I do not really want to know how much you know about embedded, but what you can apply with embedded systems towards either applied communications or automotive electronics. If I have agile development, I want to know how it actually talks of integrated product development. The kids are learning something in the curriculum which talks about what they know. I'm saying, what can you do with what you know? The focus of the curriculum on only
That is fair
complements.
enough.
So therefore, I would like you all to have a look at the NVEQF. That is a framework with this talk where the existing academic curriculum can be complemented with an industry supplement, which is being a collaborative certification between industry and academia, which is an international process where you can have, say, 300 credits in a year, 250 can come from your academic, 50 credits come from industry, and it's there together. You are now both industry academic as well as you are professionally trained. So the facet is that this collaborative process is now in place. It has to take off. So in preparation of this, industry said, what are the components that you want to
Sandhya,
add?
you'll have
because
to
that is
wind
the
up,
change
wind up.
that has to happen. That change management is what? We cannot, industry cannot be
The
static.
concern which I voiced was that when we certify somebody as a master, and in process of his 2 years of master's degree or 3 years of master's degree, we have tweaked the curriculum, lowered it down to meet the local industry's need.
Please, let's understand it. Let us understand as planners and policy makers, we are not making somebody ready for Ford Motors or Tata Motors. Let's understand that. We are not telling that we are making our students only for Infosys or Wipro or anything. No. We are trying to tweak the curriculum to make it quality-wise better for an industrial need. That doesn't mean tomorrow if Ford were to close down, these people would be unemployed. True. We are not doing that at all. Let's make ourselves very clear. If at all we have tried to give an impression of that kind, I think we need to clarify it very clearly.
That is
and
the tone
upfront.
in most of the conferences.
No, we are not. And let us make that very clear. We are not tweaking the curriculum, nor are we diluting it in any sense. If I told you that the plan document tells that under excellence, please understand, excellence is something where we want our students to rise up from the level that they are. And that does not mean that they would not have their academic inputs. We are only saying that make them at the same time relevant to what may be the global economy needs. That's all that we are trying to say. So let us clarify that, and if I may just wind up, sorry for the time factor, but if I may just wind up on his question whether 4 C's alone are sufficient. That particular chapter of education is for education and employability. So we are not talking in terms of character building, and it never remains an insignificant factor. 4 C's are important in terms of the employability part, and the other parts of character building and moral values continue to remain very, very significant in a society. So we are now no way trying to undermine that, but it was only for employability. And I think your easy in and easy out, I think the ministry got the maximum beating by having the common entrance that we tried to launch from this year. The idea was in terms of trying to filter and at the same time maintain the standards. So we are concerned about that, and we do not want a pack of unemployable kind of graduates in the system. And if there's anything that has been, I think, your terms of feedback, yes, because of the feedback, that's why we are here in today. We are all the time trying to think in terms of how industry would like to have, relevant education in a certain sense. And there has been a continuous dialogue. I must thank all the panelists for being here and patiently putting up with my own interjections in between because of the factor of time. And I thank the ELTS group for having organized this and invited us all for sharing of these ideas. I thank all the participants who are here and who have patiently listened to us also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Shakila Shamshu, for setting the stage in such a nice manner with your really interesting PPT. I would like to call upon stage Dr. Ravi Gupta, CEO, Illets Technomedia, to give her the mementos of thanks to all our speakers for the session. First of all, I'd like to call upon stage the session chair, Madam Shakila Shamshu. Can we have a round of applause for all the speakers? I know this is the last session. We are almost exhausted with our energy, but still we can have a round of applause for her. Dr. Sandhya Chintala, Executive Director, Sectors Skills Council, NASSCOM. Thank you, ma'am, for taking out your time from your busy schedule to join us here. Dr. Deepak Shah, Secretary, Kamla Education Society, Pune, Maharashtra. Dr. Madhu Chitkara, Vice Chancellor, Chitkara University. Thank you, ma'am, for staying back despite of all your schedules. Professor Dr. Sandeep P. Solanki, Director, MBA Department, M.H. Gadi School of Management. Captain H.A. Arfi, IAS retired, Director, AICC and AIESR, Amity University, Noida. And the youngest of all speakers, Ritesh Mehta, who presented a short speech on behalf of Gujarat Knowledge Society. Thank you, all of you, for joining us at World Education Summit in the Higher Education track.
Thanks, sir. So with this we conclude the higher education track of the World Education Summit. We have the school track still like happening in the Allure Hall. So we will see you next year again at next edition of World Education Summit. Thank you so much.